far more. Well, Maria Ramos is here with us in the studio. If you ever give up banking, Maria, we'd love you to come to the studio more often, because you're about the only person who can keep David quiet or kick him out of his hot seat in the beginning. But it's you certainly have made an impact there at ABSA. It's your first set of financial results, and as I mentioned in the introduction, you really have taken an axe to the provisioning there. 6 billion rand in all that's being written off.
Well, Alec, I don't know if it's an axe, and I certainly think what we've done is absolutely prudent. We have 4.8 billion rand of that are credit impairments, and I think that is a reflection of the overall economic environment that we're in. You'll see that impairments are up 121.9%. And I think we've said throughout the day today that we expect on the retail side impairments to peak in the last quarter of this year, so in the second half of the year, and in the commercial banking environment, impairments to peak in the first half of next year.
Can you just slow down a little there? In other words, your bad debts that you've written off, people who aren't going to repay their loans, is up double from a year ago. Well, we know the economy is rough, but is it not what we've written off. It's the provisioning.
It's, in other words, the impairments that we are raising.
Well, you're hoping that you'll get some money back, but you might not from that.
Well, yes, I think it's just a reflection of where we are in the cycle. And if you compare to where we were a year ago, I think ABSA was in a different position at that point. So they have increased quite significantly from a year ago. If you compare it to the provisioning at the end of the year, the number isn't as dramatic. I think that the provisioning or the impairment number had started increasing at the end of last year.
Right, so at the moment you're writing off nearly 2%, or you're impairing nearly 2% of the loans that
rather than, yeah.
What is also interesting is that your lending has actually gone down since the end of the year.
Yes, but again, I think there are two issues there, and the first is that we are not getting not as many people are actually applying for loans. So I think, and that again is a reflection of where the economic cycle is. Let's not forget that this is the first recession in South Africa for almost 17 years. So we are not seeing as many applications for credit across the board. Certainly we're not seeing as many people coming in and applying for mortgages, for example, or for loans to buy motor vehicles.
So it's more a question of people not coming to you and asking for loans.
It's both. And then I think we obviously also our credit criteria as tightened, and we're not, our LTVs have changed, loans to value. So in other words, we are asking people for higher. We started asking for people for higher deposits. So the idea that you can just get a loan for 100% of the value or 100% of the loan that you're asking for is not going to be, or hasn't been the case. And although in some cases where it's a client that we've known well, where the client meets all the credit criteria, where we are quite happy with the credit in front of us, some of that has started to change as we are feeling, in some cases, on a case-by-case basis, a little bit more confident. There's been a relaxation of LTVs. By and large, it's still a tight credit environment. So the combination of less people walking through the door, asking and applying for credit, and a tighter credit criteria.
It's quite interesting to notice that Barclays also released financial results today, and they were up 10% in their profits. And ABSA's down. Now, are we lagging a little to the rest of the world?
No, I think what you'll see is that in the case of Barclays, the results story at Barclays has been driven largely by the investment banking division of Barclays. So if you look at the rest of the Barclays group, you'll see that their retail and corporate banking division has also shown
And I suppose the swing factor being your investment banking division didn't exactly shine. You had to write off a lot of money on investments.
Yes, but that was also, I think we also make that point in our commentary, that a large part of that has been the provisioning or the impairment of a billion, 1,095 million or 1.1 billion rand that we have made now against an exposure to single stock futures which arose at the end of last year.
Maria, there are a lot of shareholders in ABSA from the old Building Society days. They'll see their dividend cut by 15%. Well, thank goodness you didn't pass it entirely. But what about the second half of the financial year? If you're already seeing that on a case-by-case basis you may be asking for a little less deposit now, is the bank as a whole coming out of it? Can they bank 15% less dividend for the year?
Well, it's still too early to tell. I think what I do want to say is that the economic environment remains pretty constrained, and you can see that from some of the data that was out today, the PMI index just being one of them. But it is a very constrained environment still. Consumers remain under enormous pressure despite the 450 basis points cut in interest rates. Unemployment remains an issue for us, which is why we haven't just gone out there and lifted credit criteria. We have to be responsible lenders too, so we're doing it on a case-by-case basis. And so I think shareholders need to know that what we are doing is we are completely focused on the sustainability of earnings and on holding the health of the balance sheet together, and the quality of credit is an important component.
Can
of that
you keep
story.
it at this level though? A lot of people rely on their dividends, as we saw with the outcry with Anglo American when they didn't pay a dividend. A lot of people will be relying on their ABSA dividend later this year. Can you keep
I
it at this
know
level?
that the dividend is lower than as you say than last year, but it is still 2.5 times cover, which is what it was last year, and I think that was what we were keen to hold on to. Again, it's early to tell. So, but I think what we're driving in this business is looking for sustainability of earnings.
Just to close off with there are a lot of people sitting at Pinnacle Point now wondering what is going to happen with that operation. From the results, the commentary to the results, it looks like ABSA is stepping in to save it.
No, what we are doing is we have impaired Pinnacle Point fully. So we have taken a decision which we believe is in the best interest of ABSA's shareholders. We will make a further commitment and investment in Pinnacle Point, but there are a whole lot of conditions precedent, including the fact that Pinnacle Point would have to raise 100 million rands worth of fresh capital.
So if it doesn't raise 100 million, you don't put your 150 in?
Those are the conditions precedent.
Wow. Maria Ramos, Chief Executive of ABSA.